We open on something haunting. Meredith in surgery, calm and focused, until the walls of the OR start to blur. Ellis Grey appears. Her mother, sharp-tongued, cold as ever. It's one of those surreal Grey's Anatomy moments where the show doesn't just tell you grief hurts. It shows you. Meredith's dream bleeds into a nightmare when her children appear too, standing there in silence. It's the kind of scene that gets under your skin, symbolic, eerie, and intimate all at once. Then, a knock breaks the illusion. Meredith wakes up. It's Maggie. Together, the sisters are back in each other's orbit, there to help Amelia through the loss of Beltran. And honestly, that's the emotional backbone of this episode: loss, guilt, and that slow, painful climb toward healing. Meanwhile, over at Grey Sloan, Richard Webber does what he does best: revives the soul of the hospital. His intern speech is back, this time in N or still being rebuilt after the explosion. It's less about inspiration and more about resilience. You can feel the weight of everything this hospital has been through. While he's speaking, Bailey's doing her own kind of rebuilding, searching for residents who can lead, teach, and hold everything together even while they're grieving. It's the classic Grey's formula: chaos meets heart. Elsewhere, the tension between Teddy and Owen hasn't softened one bit. Their marriage feels like it's balancing on a knife edge, and Teddy's stress over paperwork and leadership only makes the cracks wider. Then we move to Jules. She's struggling in more ways than one. There's this awkward but funny scene where she's wrestling with a locker that just won't open. Turns out, it's the wrong one. Blue steps in and helps her out, and it's this small but necessary breath of lightness. Because Jules needs someone right now. She was there when Beltran died, and even though she won't say it out loud, that moment is still haunting her every move. Over in Link's room, Owen checks in. The man's clearly not okay, and yet he's pretending he is. Jo sees through him, of course. She always does. But Link's pride is fighting against his pain, and the show's really nailing that quiet masculinity. The kind that refuses to look weak, even when you're falling apart inside. Winston gets a lot of screen time this episode, too. He's mentoring Jules and her group of new interns, and it's clear Jules doesn't have patience for any of them. She's sharp, she's guarded, but her walls are cracking. Winston, ever the steady one, reminds her that no one gets through this alone. She even asks him to forget what almost happened between them in the closet, which says everything about where her head is at right now. Then, in pure Grey's fashion, all hell breaks loose. A construction worker rushes into the ER yelling about something rolling. And yeah, that something is a forklift, with a man impaled by it. The chaos is immediate, surgical teams are called, and the adrenaline hits full throttle. While that's unfolding, Meredith and Maggie are knee-deep in Amelia's personal chaos. Broken washing machine, unwashed clothes, and a woman drowning in grief. The two sisters stage a kind of emotional intervention, forcing Amelia to get up, clean up, and take back her life. If not for herself, then for Scout. But what starts as tough love turns into tears when Maggie breaks down and drops the bombshell. She's pregnant. Their handling of that moment is remarkable. It's pure Grey's Anatomy. Emotional, unexpected, and somehow healing. Back at Grey Sloan, the surgical team is working miracles on the forklift victim. But Blue's ego gets in the way. He's so desperate to impress Bailey that he sends his interns off to the skills lab, which backfires spectacularly when Bryant, one of the newbies, decides to play Dr. Solo. A nurse calls him to check on a patient, and the poor guy walks in acting like he knows what he's doing. The result? A boil erupts, and there's blood everywhere. The scene is reminiscent of classic intern chaos. Meanwhile, Winston and Jules find a strange mass on their patient scans. It leads to one of the most fascinating cases this season, a man who fled Cambodia during the genocide. They think it could be mustard gas related, and you can see Jules trying to process this man's trauma as a reflection of her own. She's holding on by a thread, pretending to be fine, but every patient's story keeps poking at the cracks. Amelia's arc continues to pull focus. She's trying to isolate, but Meredith and Maggie won't let her. And when Maggie admits she went through IVF and used a donor because she didn't want anyone talking her out of it, it's actually empowering. The sisters' dynamic finally feels whole again, and for the first time in a long time, Grey's gives them space to just be. Back in the hospital, Bailey surprises everyone by recognizing Bryant's guts under pressure and moves him to her service. Simone and Lucas are not thrilled, mostly because their own relationship drama is already a ticking time bomb. Link's storyline gets even more heartbreaking when Jo finds him trying to move around. Catheter still in, pride still intact, and he collapses. He's humiliated, angry, and scared. Later, Owen sits with him, letting him vent. And that moment where Link admits that surviving isn't always something to celebrate, that sometimes being alive hurts more. It's one of the most honest pieces of writing the show's had in years. In surgery, Jules starts to spiral when the machines start beeping. The sound triggers flashbacks to Beltran's death. Winston sees it and forces her to sit down and ground herself, naming things around her to steady her breathing. And just as she finds her footing, he discovers what the mass really is. Not a tumor, not cancer, but an extra spleen. Leave it to Greys to make even a medical anomaly feel poetic. Amelia's guilt finally spills out. She confesses that she blames herself for Beltran's death, that she should have stopped the first surgery, that maybe none of this would have happened if she'd spoken up. But Maggie doesn't let her drown in that guilt. She tells her she wouldn't blame her if it were her baby, and that's when it clicks. Healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means forgiving yourself. That night, Jules calls a 911 page. Not for a patient, but for her friends. She just needs them. And even though Lucas is still mad, Simone and the others show up. They get it. They all understand that grief isn't something you survive alone. That scene, for interns sitting together holding space for each other, is the quiet heart of the episode. And then Teddy, exhausted, overworked, and ready to break. She walks into her office to find everything cleared. Paperwork filed, desk organized, and Weber waiting. He's filed a workers' comp report with Catherine and tells her she doesn't have to do this alone. The chief doesn't always have to be strong. Sometimes, letting someone help is the strongest thing you can do. By the end, there's this quiet sense of movement. Healing isn't loud. It's slow, tender, and full of cracks. Meredith's dream of Ellis, Amelia's guilt, Jules' flashbacks, and Link's anger. All of them are fragments of the same truth. Grief doesn't leave you, but you can learn to live alongside it. And that's what makes Grey's Anatomy still matter after all these years. It's not just about surgeries or heartbreaks. It's about the people who stay, who keep trying, who keep believing that broken things can still heal.